Welcome to our July 14th study session. We have a single agenda item, and then I at least have a few calendar reminders that folks might also have some chiming in on that to do this evening. And to introduce our guest presenters this evening is Deputy City Manager Mike Broughton.
Thank you, Mr. Much Mayor. Council, tonight the agenda item you have before you is the discussion on the Reynolds Landing Master Plan. We've been working closely with some of our partners in the development of this, working also with DHM Designs and McLaughlin Whitewater on the development of the master plan. If you recall, in the budget for 2015, you've got $1.1 million. We supplemented that with $300,000 grant from Arapahoe County. So we have about $1.4 million to work with currently for this project. Ben and Bill will talk more about the budget piece themselves, but so the total at Reynolds Landing, we have the upland improvements, which is everything above. You'll see on the master plan everything proposed on the upper areas from the banks, and then you have the banks and the in-channel pieces. So the upland improvements, as they're being called, are about $2.4 million, and once we get into the water, we're looking at $3.2 to $5 million, somewhere in that range for total project cost. So this will be an ongoing, should you choose to move forward with this, ongoing pieces that you'll see throughout the coming years, likely. And if there aren't any other additional questions, I'll cover too that we did have a public meeting to help develop some of this, and we put questions out on Open Littleton too to garner citizen comment on the concept master plan, which is now moving into it. Next week at your council meeting, you'll have assuming everything goes well tonight, you'll have a joint meeting with South Suburban to adopt the master plan so we can move forward with this whole process.
So where are they on the review process? Have they looked at this previously?
I'm told that they met late June and we're okay with the concept plan.
The same thing?
Yeah, on the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And they've been involved in some of the planning, well, all the planning meetings as well, so they're up to it. Their board has been briefed on it.
Thanks.
And it's essentially the briefing you're going to get now. So I'll introduce Bill Newman with DHM Design. He's been the designer on the project. Yeah, you'll recognize him because he's been the designer on a few other projects that we've done as well. So I'll hand it over to him if there's any questions. I'm happy to pop back up if Bill can.
Good to see you again, Bill.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Sure. I just want to give kind of a quick overview of the Reynolds Landing Master Plan. It's a fabulous site, as we all know, heavily used along the Mary Carter Greenway. We've got the Platte River right there, huge amenity, just a fabulous site. The existing facilities include the large picnic shelter, the area with the portalette with bike racks and trash cans, and the existing trailhead parking lot. And again, fabulous views of the open spaces and of the river itself. So as Mike mentioned, back in April of this year, we had an open house at the Carson Nature Center, and we had a pretty good turnout. We had about 30 plus people at that time, and I believe the city also had the same questionnaires on the website. So we had pretty good exposure for the project. And what we did is we displayed two different boards. We were asking people for what was their priority, what was most important to them. And we looked at both river activities as well as the upland activities, and we asked them to prioritize what was most important to them. And then this is kind of the feedback that we received from the public, both from the open house and online. So for the uplands, these were the top responses. So people wanted to see us improve the upland facilities at the trailhead and especially the restroom. They talked about expanding the picnic and viewing areas and then providing a nature-inspired play area, and I'll show you some photographs of what that might look like. Also, we want to provide more informal walking and hiking trails within the Reynolds Landing area, providing better connectivity, especially with the new brewery that's been constructed, and then wildlife watching was important to people. For the river, what was important is people wanted to re-engage the river with the open space park and make that a stronger connection. We want to provide better opportunities for floating activities, provide wave activities that include new water play areas, improve river access and circulation, and then fishing opportunities. So these were kind of the top responses that we received from the public. So after receiving these, we incorporate the...
Question? What's
Yes.
circulation? Improve river and circulation. What's circulation?
Circulation, river access and circulation when you're floating down the river and coming back. And I'll show you a little diagram
Gotcha.
what that kind of means. So this is the conceptual master plan. And the two areas outlined in red on the left is the City of Littleton's open space, which is 11.3 acres. And on the right is South Suburban's portion of Reynolds Landing, which is 10 acres. Point to a couple areas. Doesn't work, and I stay by the microphone. Maybe Ben can point for me. Sure. Can I drag one of those? There you go. There you go. Give some shadow fingers. I was just going to have Ben point out that the brewery lane and the new brewery that's been constructed, and then the existing parking lot right there, and then the existing picnic facilities, the large. Great, thank you.
Real quick, though, just to clarify, you're saying the left rectangle is City of Littleton,
Yes.
but ultimately, South Suburban is going to manage that
Yes.
as our partner, right? I mean, that's just the old ownership structure in terms of how it got divvied up when we bought it?
Correct.
And I'll add to a little bit of that because of some of the residual occupancy. The reason why the right was developed as it was had to do with some of that residual. Yeah, it's for cheap.
So in the yellow circles, kind of the areas of improvement for the trailhead. So we're showing a new expanded parking lot area. That'll give us 46 additional spaces. And it actually gets the parking a little bit closer to the river for those people that are unloading boats or tubes to get down to the river. It's great. So there we're also looking at expanding the picnic facilities and adding a plumbed restroom with water and sewer. That would also include a drinking fountain mounted to the restroom building. This would be what a nature-inspired playground might look like. So we'd like to create a small area. These are artificial logs. They're not real. So that's a manufactured product, a concrete composite. It looks very real, to be honest.
Are the kids real?
Those kids are real. So we'd like to provide a couple smaller picnic shelters for a family to have a picnic, and then those would overlook the playground as well as those picnic areas look out over the river. Currently, the large picnic shelter, you can't see the river. From this location, you have a fabulous view to the northeast, and you can really watch the trail and the river activity. So we just think that's a huge benefit. On the lower left is an image of what the restroom might look like. So there would be a men's and women's room, and there's a drinking fountain mounted to the front of that building, and then off to the right of that is the playground area. Across from that are the existing bike racks, which hold up to 10 bikes. And we'd like to also provide a bike repair kit or a station, and that's the image on the upper left, and we'll mount that somewhere adjacent to the restroom. That has tools that are fastened to the station that allow you to make a repair if you have a loose part on your bike, but also there's a manual pump, so if you need some air in your tires, So it's something that's commonly used and it's very easy to maintain. So we'd like to incorporate that into the plan. The two far right images kind of show you on that upper left image, that's the existing shelter. We'd like to provide some enhancements to the shelter, maybe run stone up the columns and enclose that upper clear story of the shelter. Right now, when it rains, the rain comes right through there and wets your picnic lunch, and I'm afraid the birds do the same thing. So we'd like to close that off, make it architecturally attractive, picking up a little bit on kind of an agricultural theme on the architecture, but we'd like to make these nice-looking structures.
Bill, before you leave that one,
Sure.
I'm just imagining that the flush toilet shelter is similar to the one that's just off the Greenway up by the golf course.
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually the same manufacturer, but it's a little bit different style.
Yeah, but it's similar.
It's similar.
Yeah. And then the bike station, there's one at Nixon's shop at Hudson Gardens, and so which is also sponsored by Pedal of Littleton. So
This one's different, though.
I know, it looks a little
This one's got the tools that are attached to
Yeah,
it.
theirs
I
has
actually
that.
saw one, they put one in down at the Outlook, the new apartments, they've got a bike station in there, and I actually saw that, and it's a great idea.
Yeah,
Because you can use all those tools and you can't.
because I know the folks really appreciate the one that's at Nixon's as well.
Does it have legs on it? I usually need legs more than tools.
No, you have to use your own legs. I know.
How secure are those? I mean, could they be
It's a tough crowd.
chopped off?
The tools are mounted to heavy cables.
So you couldn't?
You couldn't take those off.
Not very easily.
You would need heavy-duty tools to cut that
Okay.
off.
And
It'd be easier to steal it from the store.
yeah, the tools are not expensive to buy, so it's not a high-value theft.
Phil, do you want to maybe call Jim Taylor and see if he wants to sponsor this outhouse?
I don't think he has
Taylor,
to.
too?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be
I'll let you make that call, Bruce.
You don't get what you only ask for.
Correct.
So part of what, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to follow. I assume those past slides here, you don't have those same structures on here. But I assume they're north of that path on the right, they're more toward the right side in the south suburban section.
Yeah, from the plan, I've moved them to the east side where it's shown on the plan. We've
Okay.
been studying kind of where you get the best views.
All right.
And we thought maybe we disturb the area by the restroom on the, say it's the west side of the, southwest side of the trail. And that allows for the playground, the restroom, and the two shelters. And we just disturb one area instead of two. Plus you get the better views from this side, we think.
I agree. Okay. Thank you.
So one of our other goals is to provide connectivity to the neighborhood and the Breckenridge Brewery. So this red line represents a connection between the brewery and the sidewalk or trail at the existing parking lot. Right there, thank you. And then we extend the trail south to a new roundabout. And you see there's kind of a new alignment of the trail here, and I'll point that out in a second. That helps us with some safety and sightline issues. So this is the proposed south trail alignment. And then if you're looking back towards Santa Fe, this is the view of the brewery. So the trail would follow that red line and tie right up to their existing asphalt trail.
So, Bill, just to go back to when you're talking about improving that sight line, that corner where the bridge is
Yes.
on the bike trail
Yes.
is a little tight. Are you talking about changing that when you talk about improving the sight lines?
Yes, so that's this slide here, the photograph in the upper left. Currently, the condition is people come off the bridge heading north, and there's not a lot of warning because of the vegetation and the tight curve. So part of what we're doing is we're going to demolish the existing trail from the bridge to the new roundabout and swing the trail out wider. So as long as we're doing trail improvements, let's do it right. We want to swing that out further. Then we come into the roundabout, and the roundabout does two things. It slows traffic down going through Reynolds Landing, and then it brings it splits it and brings people back towards the parking lot and brewery.
And you'll still have the dual trail attributes, roughly?
Absolutely. The dual trail follows the,
It'll stay on the Mary Carter.
Okay, got it.
We're not going to do a dual trail on the trail, this is going up to Breck. That's just going to be concrete.
yeah, we didn't think.
But it's going to be 10 feet, right?
Yes, all the new trail that we would do would be widened to 10 feet.
How do you talk a little bit about, I'm sure you guys have this figured out, but when this thing's under construction, given how much traffic there is, how do you route people around it so they're still on asphalt or something?
Well, so we've budgeted in the cost estimate, we will have to build a temporary trail to get from the bridge to the roundabout.
How long does the construction take?
Oh, we're hopeful to put that out to bid this fall.
Okay.
Two benefits of that. One is, you know, the newness of the brewery is kind of over, and the construction traffic from the brewery, that's kind of coming to an end, as well as the greenway's not as busy in the fall as it is right now. It's so busy we wouldn't want to do construction in midsummer. So part of the overall master plan, and a lot of these are future, this shows the connectivity as well as the loops that are created by the new trail spur to the south, and then loops into some future areas of the open space. And a lot of those dashed future lines would be soft surface, narrower trails for hiking and walking. They're not all 10-foot wide concrete. We don't want to do that. But we would have a kind of a hierarchy of trails so people could walk and enjoy the open space of Reynolds Landing. So those would be soft surface trails that are in the dashed line. And those are future. The other thing we wanted to do is kind of enhance the pond. South Suburban has just done a plan, and I believe they have a contractor on board to make some improvements at Lee Gulch. So they'll have some trail connections from the Lee Gulch parking lot down to the pond. But we'd like to also come in from the other end, the south end of the pond, and maybe provide a deck or overlook there for wildlife viewing, and there's interpretive opportunities. So that's kind of a future project, is to kind of capture that amenity. It's a really beautiful pond, and there's always wildlife in the pond there. And I'm going to hand it over to Ben, and he's going to kind of talk about the river aspects of the...
If I carry this around, does it work?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to push the button.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Turn the light.
There we go. Okay. So I think, you know, the biggest asset to this site, as far as from my perspective of doing river work, is really just the river itself. I think there's a lot of open space, a lot of parks, but I think the kind of unique centerpiece of this particular site is the river. I mean, there's only one river in town, and so here it is. So I guess for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ben Nielsen. I'm with McLaughlin Whitewater Design Group, and just thank you for having us tonight. And I think really when I looked at this site originally, and we've been doing a lot of work in Arapahoe County and in Denver as well on the Platte, is that this particular site strikes me as probably the best site that we've looked at, in that it has really unique attributes in terms of cleaner water than Denver has, because it comes pretty much out of the reservoir. It has this amazingly unique park, the South Platte Park, and you have the views into the park, yet you have an opportunity here with drops like these. So when we talk about river recreation, really what you're talking about is you're talking about gradient. Is there a gradient in the river to do things, create fast-moving water, things like that you can float, you can ride on, you can do things like that. So this really had kind of all of those pieces that we really look at when we talk about the opportunities for the river. So when we talked with the public, I think overwhelmingly they realized that too, is that they really thought it was valuable to engage the river and not only do the upland amenities, which are fantastic, but also really highlighting and engaging the water and being able to get to the water. So really kind of, there's really several main kind of tenets to what we're proposing. One is that if you look at the river now, This is a channel that was built by the Corps of Engineers after the '65 flood. And you look at it, and it looks like a great place to move water, right? But it doesn't really match up very well with kind of the function or more the natural function of the river. Most importantly, low flows. So the channel can move a 100-year event, no problem, but I mean, every other day, it's wide, it's flat, you have these long, kind of what we consider to be dead areas here where you have these very shallow, very slow-moving areas. So really,
Although, Ben, over the last several weeks, they've actually started a whitewater rafting input here. So they usually put 2 rafts out there and a kayak going out. So
I know, I'm kind of eating my words a little bit. This year's been pretty
This is
pretty
a freaky
unusual.
year.
Yeah, very unusual. So I think really just, we look at restoring the channel as best we can, really, and really looking at, hey, what is the natural function of this? What are the flows, things like that. And then, so with that, improving aquatic habitat. We've been working very hard with the Corps of Engineers at the River Run project, which is down in Oxford, with vegetation. And they're actually what the O&M manual says is that there could be basically no vegetation in the channel. So there's been a lot of efforts from the state, from urban drainage to remove vegetation. So we're working with them to bring some of that back, and I think we'll be able to use a lot of the things that we've compromised and come to an agreement on here. So, and then really just, really burying riprap, trying to get the aesthetics up. And then lastly, really providing diverse recreational opportunities, both with fishing, as well as floating activities and even wave activities. So those are kind of some of the possible uses. But I think the key here is that this type of park is not Confluence Park. It's more of a natural feel. I think that's more consistent with the area and with what's around. It's kind of a transitional zone between the really natural area of South Black Park and more this urbanized channel that happens here. So really kind of focusing on just really engaging kids and other people with the water and just doing that in a number of ways. So I think one of the big concerns that I had and Bill had as well is that you have a tremendously popular Mary Carter Greenway Trail system. So if you bring people down to the water and people are using that, what's the impact on that regional trail? Particularly safety. People carrying inner tubes and kayaks and things like that. It's not so good with the road cyclists. So one of the big things that Bill and I worked on is that can we create what we're calling a river loop, which is basically the ability to float down the river, take out, and walk back up and do it again. But when you're walking back up, having separation of uses. So really how we're proposing that to be done is terracing in a trail at the water's edge that would be at a different elevation than where the regional trail is. I'm showing that
Tubers in that
here.
upper left.
And really keeping river users on the river side of the trail and not having a lot of crossing over. I mean, you have to cross obviously twice, once they leave and once you go back. We're trying to minimize that. And then as far as beyond that,
So question.
Yes.
So where are you saying people would walk back to upriver? Where?
so it would be right. So here's the Mary Carter,
Uh-huh.
and then here's the river, and it would be.
That's the pond.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's the river. I'm sorry, it's hard to see. There's the head of the tube. We have this condition in some areas now, but it's interrupted.
Right. So it'd be basically between the water's edge and the regional trail.
So that's where the people would walk back with. So how about the folks who like to walk down to the edge of the river? We aren't going to have a free-for-all, anyway, conflict with people who like to walk down to the river with the people walking back with their stuff.
Right. So do you give a slide that shows kind of this kind of central area that you were developing?
It's kind of right where
Okay, that's fine.
it is.
So here's where you would cross over. So you'd park here, you'd walk down this trail here, and then there's some traffic calming here with a circle. and you cross over, and there's going to be viewing areas, terrace, boulders and things, so you can sit by the river, and then come down, and then actually, really the idea is to have the ability to actually get down to the water itself. The trail would be, generally with a trail like that, I would want to set that at a 2-year event, flow event. So most of the summertime, the trail is several feet above where the water would be. So one of the ideas in the channel is that we want to create terracing benches within the river itself, and that would allow you to come down into the river. It would be dry during summer flows, and you'd be able to kind of walk along the
And
river.
the people walking their craft back up the river aren't really going to have conflict with the people who want to be close at different points.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's really, the trail is kind of, it's between the water and the regional trail. So there's, somewhere in the middle there, so you're kind of, and really what we've seen and what I anticipate is that when you have a tube or a boat, you're going to want to stay on a surface path. In this case, probably pressure fine surface or whatever it's going to be. But, if you're trying to get down to the water, you want to kind of go down, kind of walk around and just kind of explore a little bit. So I think that'll accommodate what you're talking about.
Great. So, thank you, Ben. This circle here kind of encases the Saperchi property. It's not rendered. It's a future part of the project, but we're just calling it a future community gathering and educational facility. We don't know what that will be, so that's why we haven't rendered it. So at some point that would become part of the master plan and identified as what that is. A couple other things I just want to mention. One of the things we want to do is establish a strong identity. So we want to have really good architecture on the picnic shelters and the restroom and any future facilities that might occur there. And we've got both agricultural and historic theming we could play off of for those. The other thing we have is the opportunity to leverage educational and interpretive assets of the site. So, there's a rich story to tell behind the river health and the function, the habitat, and then the agricultural history of the area. The other goal that we're trying to achieve, and we kind of achieve it by doing all of these things, is this project helps take pressure off South Platte Park. So it provides, an expanded trailhead, so it takes some pressure off of the Carson Nature Center in South Platte Park. It also, by improving the river recreation at Reynolds Landing, relieves a little bit of the pressure on South Platte Park. People and families can come down here and do the circulation loop that Ben had described. And also the expanded picnic facilities help pull people out of the park out towards Reynolds Landing. So those are some of the benefits of the project.
Well, the one thing I would also add, Bill, that I think, at least given my piece there, is you're actually putting in some appropriate environmentally consistent facilities for the kids to kind of enjoy. And that's something that's a little bit missing along the Greenway right now. So I think that's a key point. And what I've seen in some areas, and knowing that there's a number of runners that also will use the trail along here, when you're talking about the children's play facility, or you're talking about a play facility, you didn't say children's. I've seen folks also get involved in adult play facilities. Has there been any discussion of that?
More of a fitness type play?
It's adult play facilities.
Yeah,
so. It's not just quite, it's I know the farmhouse will be there, but it's and with the, so.
Yeah, that really hadn't been brought up.
Okay.
Platte River Playground.
Just wondering.
No, those are good ideas, but no, you're the first that's kind of mentioned that as a possibility. As Mike kind of mention our first phase of the project includes the trail that's shown in red here. So the realignment of the trail, the new roundabout, the south loop from the roundabout back towards the parking lot, and then the connection between the brewery and the Reynolds Landing trailhead. Also, the area in red is the expanded parking lot, and then the area in circled in yellow there includes the restroom and the picnic facility and the play area. So that's what we'd like to do as part of the first phase of the project.
And I don't think you said this, but in terms of bridge, there are no bridges in this section?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And the bridge that's what, just to the south here?
It's right there.
Yeah. Any possibility that might get widened? One of the excitements is you're walking along and then 47 bicycles come by each direction at the same time. I'm teasing. But it's a little exciting sometimes.
We hadn't looked at the bridge replacement at this time.
But given, I'm thinking that with what you're doing, there's going to be a lot more activity coming across that bridge, or going one way or the other, because all this is there and up downstream from Carson. So I'm thinking, and then the access this way. So I'm thinking there might be even more activity across that bridge.
It's a possibility. We could certainly look at that. We hadn't included that in our budget, obviously, because it's a large number, but we could certainly look at that. We are improving the sight lines off the bridge, so there's better visibility as you come over the bridge. You can see the bikes a little sooner.
Thank you.
And then the roundabout will help slow people down. So actually, there's a roundabout on this end and both ends of Reynolds Landing now. So we've got kind of matching roundabouts. So as they enter that zone, it helps slow people down from both directions.
But it might speed up in between both of them. So, I mean, it's sometimes
Sure.
really exciting, so, at least for me. Anyway, just feedback.
Sure, thank you.
I have a comment to make. Kind of piggyback on what Peggy's talking about. I share your same concern, but I don't want to take away from the bicycling experience, because that's a great place to ride your bike. But at the same time, for people who are walking down there, it can be a little hairy, as it is for bicycles list. So if you can just keep that in mind for the safety and the enjoyment of the walkers as well as the riders.
Absolutely, yes.
Cool, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Bill, in that same notion there, are there bridges that have a walking lane on the outside that it's the bridges that exist now for bicycling, and then on the outside of the rail you'd have another pathway for walkers? I mean, because it's hairy there. I've seen.
Not typically. It's almost like a double bridge.
Yeah.
Two separate
It
bridges.
could be cantilevered.
Because typically you can't, bridges don't come much wider than 12 feet. That would be kind of a wide load. They don't make them wider than that for prefabricated pedestrian bridges as one piece. But that's how it would have to be accomplished. You'd almost have to add a separate bridge.
I do think one of the problems with that bridge is the sight line, because when you're on it, you can't see who's coming, and so you can be surprised by that. So by correcting that, it should help with at least people's awareness. Plus, the good thing about that bridge is it's short. We have some other bridges that are much longer, so it's a shorter span, so things, you don't have to deal with it for a long time on the bridge. But I think the sightline improvement will take the safety of that bridge up exponentially.
And I didn't mention it, but part of what we probably want to do too is cut back some of the vegetation on that curve. We'll pull the curve outward, but with all the rain, everything's just growing like gangbusters. We'll want to pull that edge back.
Well, and there's also then that little footbridge into the northern wildlife area that is just right past that bridge, just north of that bridge. And so you can get some people coming off the crusher to go down into that, and then again that sightline issue. So by pulling all that away from that I think more than anything, once that's done, it's going to be good for us to really make sure that we did it the right way. And if there's any improvements that we need to do back in there, we can go back in and do some tweaks.
Good idea.
So back to the bridge again. The other bridge down near the other roundabout,
Yes.
that one has really good sight line, and that's really exciting too, with bicyclists and pedestrians. So I'm not sure sight line will improve everything there.
Because of the width.
Yeah. So anyway, just that feedback.
No, that's good feedback. Any other questions from anyone?
Sure, if there's anything else, we'd be happy to take those comments in. And
So I'll try and put it in the context of what we're going to be asked for next Tuesday.
Sure.
So roughly, there's a $1.4 million project that's out there. Is that covering phase one, or plus the design that's been done, or is that beyond?
So the $1.4 million that we have currently is council budget 1.1. We received 300,000. So that covers. Could you go back to the over there? Here. Yeah. So the 1.4 should cover these improvements in red. We'll probably do an add-on to the bid process to include the flush restrooms, the extension of the water and sewer lines down to there, just to see what it comes in at. We have some additional funding that we saved likely at Riverside Downs that we may be able to transfer to this project, but we still have to evaluate some of those funds because Urban Drainage has said that they may need some additional assistance down at South Platte Park. So to address the revegetation of the revegetation.
So Tuesday night, we'll be asked to approve just the red.
Well, you'll be asked to approve the master plan, so this entire concept.
Okay.
And this will become the master plan that we build off of for the next coming years.
Okay.
But the first phase will be the piece in red.
And we're
That's
not
what we have
going
budgeted.
to
And not the Saperchi.
Right, and we're not being asked on the yet-to-be rendered component of the Saperchi property.
No.
Correct.
Okay, good.
So the 1.4 does not include restrooms, and it doesn't include any water.
Correct.
It's simply the pathways and the parking.
Yes.
On the parking, as it is now, that parking is never used except by the brewery.
Historically, it has not been, but
There's just-
with the activity level at the brewery, there's great concern that we could become overrun if we don't have that additional parking there.
And Bill, I would say you're a little bit wrong on that. Friday afternoons and Saturdays.
I was there on a Thursday at 5, and there were 20 cars been on there
Yeah,
at that end.
Yeah,
So-
I'm just saying it,
Making the assumption.
on Friday evenings, there's a lot of bicyclists that will use that as a trailhead, as well as on Saturdays, because Carson is beyond capacity at that point in time.
And I'd say you're both right, because I'm with Bill. There is
It's times during the week, so-
It isn't just bicycling.
And remember, we're looking to planning for the future here, too. So you got future growth and expansions that we might as well include now.
But my understanding is Breckenridge isn't finished their parking lot. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah, I think the greater concern is that people will become aware of it, and then
Yeah.
they'll come back, and they'll use it. It's
Right.
It's not just about overflow from Breckenridge Brewery, it's about people. There's, the sign for Reynolds Landing is this big on Santa Fe. People will learn about it, and there's not enough parking for people who are going to say, hey, let's come back.
Yeah. And that,
That's what this is about.
Yeah. And as we do improvements, it's going to become more of an attraction as well.
And this whole river concept of the loop trail, I think, is great. That's really neat. Is there, when you do this kind of thing, do you bring in, I assume you bring in people at Carson Nature Center, Department of Wildlife and all to help with the wildlife habitat? Because the terracing of the banks and all is good for some wildlife, not so good for others. How do you make sure that you're not destroying habitat?
We would have the South Suburban come down from the Nature Center and take a look at that area. The area that we would push back is mainly riprap banks. So we would have them check it, but there are no trees in the way of the area that we would disturb. It's really just the riprap edge.
Okay. The only other comment I have, I think this is great. It's really neat and it brings tremendous amenities into the city. We had one of the slides showed you had surveyed people and they wanted nature-inspired play areas and such. I'm concerned about the orchard, and I know it's longer term, but how do we pay for something like that? I mean, orchards are expensive. You have to plant it, you have to water it, you have to prune it, you have insecticides that are sprayed, and we're 1 mile down the river from Hudson Gardens beekeeping area. They've really struggled with that kind of stuff. It just seems to me that it's a very expensive thing that also takes out part of it. One of the best new views in town is from the Breckenridge Brewery across the green space, and we're sticking a bunch of vertical trees in there and making an orchard out of it.
We just graphically showed something that there's a possible feature that might occur kind of in that central Saperchi compound once that's cleaned up in the future.
Yeah.
We haven't identified tree species or size. The size and location and species could certainly change. Just an idea.
Yeah, and ultimately, there's still about 7 years left on that lease for the Saperchi, so there's time when that comes due and we have the opportunity to actually get it back on that property and do something with it. I'm sure we'll be revising the master plan then.
I would just think it's better, you don't want to over-engineer what is a natural area by bringing in things that aren't natural to it.
Yeah, it was just a concept that kind of tied into the agricultural theming, and maybe those structures that occurred in that gathering area would have, a strong agricultural appearance, and just playing off of some of the history.
Okay.
It's just a future idea.
Yeah. All right.
So, cool. If you're willing to do your presentation at our meeting, if you will, just emphasize a little bit about safety measures you're installing for both walkers and cyclists, so that it's very clear that it is being addressed.
Okay.
If you will, please. Thank you.
So with something like this, as you do all this kind of stuff, is there any chance we might get some artifacts?
Who knows what's on the former central construction site? So potentially, but I don't know.
But I'm
You mean the archaeological
Yeah,
findings?
yeah.
Something like
Really, the
that.
only place we're providing that potential heavy excavation would be along part of the riverbank that was already disturbed.
Yeah, and all of this property has been disturbed at one time. This was the staging ground for a construction company, remember, too, so.
Might find my wife's old treehouse.
like the restroom area or whatever, potentially might, I just was curious, and I'm assuming if we did accidentally discover something that survived over 1 million years, we would, not that long, but we'd be alert and preserve it, right?
Yeah, and at the restroom, we're really not excavating for that. The foundation just sits that grade.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be digging very deep.
Okay.
Bruce?
Yeah, so a couple of questions. I mean, I think with, the traffic congestion issues, I'm thinking parking garage myself, but.
Next.
See, you'll have to go down, and you never know what you could find then. That's right. Question, though, on you said you may end up using some of the money on the first phase to do water and sewer, but I guess my question is, I would think the sewer tap for something like this is going to be expensive because there can't be anything in the vicinity. So why wouldn't we just do septic or some other alternative?
Actually, Ben's office, they've been in contact with
So they thought of those questions already.
So this would be served by Denver Water and Southwest Metro, and we've spoken to them. I haven't specifically, but my understanding is that the sewer tap is on the order of I think $12,000 to $15,000, in order to go into the sewer line. As far as the septic, I can't really speak to that. I think that there could be some issues with that directly adjacent to the river.
Yeah, remember, there was a residence on the Saperchi property.
Well,
That's still a long, yeah, I hear what you're saying.
The sewer line's right where my pin is, right there.
Yeah, and there's a sewer line that goes right along the greenway.
All right, that's information that's good to have.
Yeah, so Southwest Metro is actually really good to work with. I mean, they typically don't like you going into these big trunk sewers with a line like this. They're allowing that, and that's a huge cost savings just because it's very little line to get there.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize it.
Yeah.
No. All right, carry on.
On the other hand, the water line does come from Brewery Lane, so that's a further distance. We didn't mention,
So the water line stops around here, we'd have to do an extension in.
Okay.
so
And they debated on whether to make it a water or a beer tap line.
what we've done is we're trying to size it so in the future, they could tap off of that same line to run to Saperchi and also run the irrigation system around the parking lot, because South Suburban currently hand waters that, which is, high maintenance and not great to do. So the added benefit of the water, we want to incorporate that into an irrigation system to put bumpers on the trees and shrubs.
Mr. Beckman?
The slide that you showed at the beginning when it talked about the goals of the people that were participating in the survey, you talked about the river area and then the upland areas. There were 5 each. How many participants were there in that survey?
There were 30 at the open house, and there were 123 respondents.
Yeah, 123 views. I can't remember how many actually responded, but so we had a fair cross-section. Folks that actually were interested enough to come out to a public meeting, and then also those that participated online. Yeah, it was a rainy April afternoon, maybe even snowing, but yeah.
So when you make the presentation next Tuesday, nobody on this list was caring too much about bicyclists, but we're putting a lot of emphasis on this first phase about bicyclists. So it would be helpful to discuss, that dissonance that we're doing the bike trails before we're getting to the walking trails, because these reflect what I think would be walking and hiking trail interest rather than wildlife watching and rather passive kinds of things. Of that group, not too much of an interest in high-speed bicycling through the park. So there may be a group of people that don't like high-speed bicycling through the park who might view this as perhaps not hearing their issue.
The fifth item on the provide the better connectivity was in reference to the greenway traffic, the bicycle and the pedestrian.
Maybe some clarity on that, but
Okay.
But I just...
So yeah, there were plenty of people at that open house who were very concerned with bicycling and were avid bicyclists.
Okay. That would be helpful to
Sure.
clarify that in the discussion.
Council, other questions? Comments? Look forward to seeing you on Tuesday evening. Thank you, Bill and Ben.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Council.
Appreciate it.
Also, Mr. Mayor, if I could, just have a moment. Garrett Graybeal is our intern in the city manager's office, and I just want to introduce him because he's here tonight. So, Garrett, if you'd stand up. There you go. So he's helping out with a bunch of stuff in our office right now, and we've really appreciated him with his assistance.
Okay. Well, thank you, and hope you're having a great summer. Okay. Council, I'm going to take the opportunity while you're here tonight to review some of the calendar items, at least that I have on my list, for the city over the next few weeks. Number one, as we've provided some support to Romancing the Bean over the years, they are having their 15th anniversary, so you get a free cup of coffee, and they're serving cake tomorrow. Also tomorrow is a grand opening for Rocky Mountain Foot and Ankle, which is off of Dry Creek over by the new boardroom, which is now open. Second, our summer concert series at the museum continues tomorrow with Dawson James.
Expect rain.
That has, although the one time I was there for the
Well, if they're going to have a concert on Wednesday night,
that-
it's better than the rain.
Sprinkler.
And a reminder for anyone that is listening, but also those council members, Councilmember Cole and Beckman will be at Blueberries from 7 to 9 this Thursday morning.
If I can pause you there, Bill and I went to the one at King Soopers Starbucks, and I thought that was the best one I'd been to, at least. Not because you were there, I guess, but I don't think you. Thank you, but it was. I thought it was interesting to see a lot of new people there, so that was good.
Good.
And where's theirs going to be?
It'll be at Blueberries this Thursday. And the Turkey Leg Hoedown is Friday and Saturday evenings. Also, along with the, as we've talked a little bit about the brewery, Breckenridge Brewery is celebrating their 25th anniversary with a hootenanny on Saturday. Leftover salmon will be there, as well as others. Next Tuesday, Council, remember, is Meet, Greet, and Eat at Powell Middle School before our council meeting. On the 21st as well, as Deputy City Manager Broughton indicated, is a joint meeting with South Suburban dealing with the Reynolds Landing presentation that we saw this evening. Also on the 28th, which is 2 weeks from now, is a Meet, Greet, and Eat out at Trailmark, so make sure you have those on your calendar. And I know it doesn't involve all of council, but our own Bemis Library is having a Comic-Con for the teens on the 30th of this month. 8/1, or August 1st, is the Criterion, beginning at 3:30 p.m. Downtown Littleton. August 4th is National Night Out.
Could you pause there a second?
Sure.
So are we going to start late that night? We usually, so at,
I believe it's 8:30. Give me 1 second. Keep going.
Okay, we'll come back to that. The 7th through the 16th of August is Western Welcome Week, and make sure you have the parade on your calendar for the 15th. And looks like we're going to have some fun. Bring good legs, Bill. Okay. And the August 7th is also our first Friday art walk in downtown. The Saturday, the 8th, is Littleton Jam in conjunction with Western Welcome Week. And so those are ones that I have on my calendar, which are somewhere within the next 3 weeks or so.
What day is the parade?
15th. Be there at 9:30 with good legs, Deb.
And there was an email today from Kathy, too, you may want to look into. That looks like it can be.
So we'll have some fun.
8 p.m. late start.
thank you.
8 p.m. on August 4th. And I don't know if I missed anything, but
On our second item, we're not doing tonight. Did the city get the direction you were looking for then?
No, we're going to come back later. We're doing some more research.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
very good. Okay. If nothing else, council,
Excellent.
we're adjourned for the evening.
It's not even 7:30.